Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript party and my buddy Rhett. We just finished up our voice API video. She got her nut then. Um, so it's a fun, that is a fun project. I think that I think I'm getting pretty close to being done with that project. And then it'll be, then I have a couple of actual true working implementations that I would like to build. So I'm sort of in a unit test death spiral. And actually, last night I saw that I had a comment from a video that was a couple weeks ago. I look every single day. Hey, Rat, shush it up. I look every day, but for some reason, this comment didn't show up until yesterday for me on my side. So if people aren't responsive to you on YouTube or whatever for your comments, they may not be getting them on their side. I definitely have, like, that's sort of one of the benefits of having a really small channel, right? Like I think it's like 460 subscribers or something, like 360, 260. I don't even remember now. I look, and that's a good example of something I look at every single day, and don't even can't even remember now. Let me go with my dashboard. Is it under content? It's kind of weird because the view looks so different depending on the size of the screen. And they have a thing called a dashboard. Can I get to it there? Yeah. And the dashboard gives you a lot of really good. So yeah, I have 369 subscribers. And while I'm here, I guess I might as well show off some of YouTube's amazing analytics. Um, so my audience has changed quite a bit in the last few months or last month or so. So hardly anybody subscribed. I don't blame you. To me, I don't know. I don't know, subscription. I think it helps the group, but then at the same time, it's like, you know, like if you're not making your living off of this, if you're doing this for some other reason, then who cares? But I have 13% female. So I would say for the first couple of years of this channel, it was zero. It was always zero. Now it's actually like in double digits, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that. Um, my age group used to just be almost always like at least 95%, but most of the time 100% on the 25 to 34. So we are getting a little older. I wonder if this is just people aging with me. It's been a couple years, so some of them, but we are actually picking up some very young people too. It's just pretty cool. This is just becoming more and more of a reality for me, and that almost everybody that comes to this website is from outside the United States. Um, I think a lot of people in the United States probably use VPNs, but I doubt they use VPNs that look at code, but I doubt they use VPNs that sort of obscure the country that they live in. So I think the vast majority of people, 21.8% of the, so like as you could tell, this doesn't even count up to 50, I don't think. This is 32, 35, 37%. So, um, like 30, but I bet you there's a whole ton of ones. Like they probably only show you your top five, but I bet you have tons and tons of ones scattered all around the world, and sub 1%ers. But India is by far the biggest. It would be interesting to know if I'm actually picking up more Indian people in India. Well, not that's the wrong word. People who like live in India and have always lived in India and are becoming or have a desire to come to the United States and all that, or if I'm picking up people who lived in the United States and now, like, because of the new laws and the new changes, have moved back to India from the United States. Um, and that's why my India number is going up and my United States number is going down. Um, and the other numbers have gone way up, and I think all three of those countries, India, Bangladesh, and Egypt, I think are all um, countries that we get a lot of like H-1B sorts of workers, foreign workers that work here, and then they for a few years, and then they go back to their home country. Um, so I don't know exactly why that would be, why that's happened, but I think my content in general has never been particularly interesting to Americans, but seems to be interesting to foreign people. And I don't really know why it's interesting to them. I feel like if I lived in a foreign country and I had desires to either work with Americans or um, come to the United States, I would probably watch my videos. And I would watch my videos for buzzwords, for communicate, just so I could like get better at understanding what Americans sound like when they talk about technology things. I know that like I use Teams a lot, and when I was doing interviews, I would get a lot of technical um, in interviews with people from India, many times in India, and we would use Teams. And in Teams, they have the ability to create transcripts while you're talking, and the real time transcripts for me always were clear as day, right? Like Teams could absolutely understand everything I said and would type it out exactly, almost always exactly perfectly. And then, and I was like, that sort of validated to me that I speak a very clear, understandable version of English. But I couldn't understand what the Indians were saying. But the thing is, Teams could. Teams could totally put all of their stuff in absolute clear, easy to read English, which tells me that they speak a very clear, understandable English that I can't understand. So, um, if you're from India and you want to work in the United States or you want to work with Americans or whatever, it probably would be very beneficial to listen to my videos and just try to become comfortable with my accent. I don't know anyone in the United States, anywhere I've ever been, who has a hard time understanding when I speak. I've been to New York, I've been to California, I've been to Washington, I've been to Florida, I've been all over the place, and everyone here can understand me. If I talk to somebody from like India, or even England, right? Even Australia, will have a hard time understanding each other. There are definitely Australians that I just cannot understand. Like we'll try and they can't understand what I'm saying. I can't understand what they're saying. Um, and what's really crazy about Australia and India is I have a very southern pace to my pace. I don't have a whole lot of southern draw or that kind of thing. Those sorts of things. I learned my version of English in New Mexico, and think about New Mexico is people do speak very slowly, the same way we do here in Georgia, but they don't. But we don't have the southern draw, so we don't say y'all. We don't say sweet tea. Uh, bless your heart. Bless your heart. We don't say that kind of thing, but we do speak slowly. The same way, same way. But whenever I've gone anywhere else, they will get frustrated if, like, people in New Jersey and Philadelphia, places like that may get frustrated because they're like, get to it, get whatever you're trying to say, just say it. But they don't usually have a problem understanding what I'm saying. Anyways, that is my thing. And one interesting thing that is very, very interesting is the dashboard. What is it? Analytics. This is so interesting. So I have like 2,000 views, 104 hours of watch time. Now, if I go to, I think this will be interesting to people. If I go to my wife's YouTube, because I do her YouTube as well, and I don't think she cares if I share this information. We're both Gen Xers, so we maybe overshare. But I go to her dashboard. I always find it fascinating. Um, this is like a very good example. Like all she would literally have to do is just barely just say, "Hey guys, all my," she has like 40 over 40,000 followers on TikTok. So if she just said, "Hey everybody, can you please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe?" she would blow right by me. But she has like 10 less um, subscribers than I do. See, she has 356 and I have 369. Like when I was a kid, I used to have a Datsun B210. It was this orange Datsun B210. It was a little 4-cylinder car, and I used to race like Corvettes and stuff. But the thing is, they never knew we were racing. I would just go up to a red light and try to go faster than them. And as long as they didn't know we were racing, I could always beat them. That's the only reason I'm mad at my wife. It's because she doesn't even know we're in a race. She does. We've mentioned it a few times, but she's not too particularly focused on her YouTube. She wants to keep it going, but just in case they ever shut down TikTok again, just for an easy place. But you'll see that she has 29,400 views, but 36 hours of watch time, and I have. Let's go to analytics. 2,000 views, so literally 1/15 the number of views, but I have 104 hours of watch time. So I have like 4 times as much. It's funny. But her videos, to be fair, are only like 8 seconds long, and they're almost always watched on shorts. Whereas my videos are like long, and I've never created a short. So there's that. Anyways, so I am in what I've been calling just a bizarre unit test sort of death spiral. And so, yeah, a couple weeks ago, somebody put a comment and they said, "Why do you even do this?" Right? And it wasn't even one of my technical videos. It was a video that I titled, "I think AI is a scapegoat." And I do one every 3 or 4 weeks. I'll do like a video that is not like coding centric, and that was one of those. And the person's like, "Get to the point. Why do you even have a channel or whatever?" And I feel like I'm in a luxurious situation where like I can spend as much time or even more time. Like let's say he spent 60 seconds composing a comment. First of all, the fact that he took 60 seconds to compose a comment tells me that it's worth kind of contemplating what he was saying. And it's like, why do you even do this? And I think the thing is like, so we have like a very common theme in TV here in the United States. I don't know if it's like this in the rest of the world, but right now you see in movies and TV shows all the time, like this concept where someone gets a drink, they like an alcoholic drink, and then they drink it, and somebody else has put a substance in that drink that then makes them forget the next 24 hours. I think it's generally, like as a general rule, it's called being roofied, and I believe the word roofie comes from the name of a specific drug, but I don't think it necessarily is that you use that drug. I think it's just that the whole concept that like you sort of go into an alternate mind, your mind goes into an alternate place, and then when you come out you can't remember what happened. And so in that situation specifically, like that they keep showing in TV around here in our media around here in the US, in that situation, while you're in that other state, A, you're very vulnerable, and B, you're extremely you can't really punish the wrongdoers because you don't know what happened. So this is different. This is totally different, but similar. When you write code, a lot of times you go into like an alternate state and you don't necessarily remember when you come back out of it all the details when you were in that coding flow. A lot of people will call it like a flow state. You don't remember what happened, and then And it's kind of like one of these things where, like, when you're in the flow state, you can remember things from previous flow states, but you don't really remember them when you're out of the flow state. Just like an observation that I made over time. Well, um, I wrote a bunch of code here, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I would like the code to make sense. And I don't know that, like, in a professional setting, if it's, I don't think you can feasibly get to the point where you're no longer writing code that you don't really understand and that, makes sense, that you don't, when you're in the flow state, that you'll be able to understand when you're outside the flow state. Um, like, you can't really do that at work because it just takes time. And so I guess to answer that guy's question, why do I even have a channel? Like, I feel like every other video I say, this is why I do this channel, and it's a different thing every time. But one clear reason I do this is so that I can tease apart all these things that I've sort of learned while I was in flow state that I don't really understand while I'm not in flow state. Um, and then maybe even correct some bad habits that I've picked up inside of flow state that I didn't have, that just having, find things that work but don't really make sense. Um, you know, so basically, I guess I'm trying to get my code, my skill set to the next level. So, anyways, I do know that in general, I don't, if at all possible, I like to avoid interacting with the uh, whatever, if it's a component or a service, whatever, with its state variables as much as I can, because I do know that it's extremely difficult. It's way more difficult to write unit tests for code that interacts with the state. So state interactions is a very, very deceptively simple thing to do, but complex thing to understand. Um, and then and you really don't want to mix and match it with actual um, real complex logic. So that's sort of what I'm working through right now, and it's taking a lot of time. And we could move on, and it wouldn't be a big deal, but kind of working through this is kind of important to me. So I'm going to look for this function. It's called prune visualizations by renderer ID, and I did get help from ChatGPT to come up with this name. And I thought this would be a really good name because we prune our visualizations. So it sort of makes the concept of our list of visualizations kind of like a tree, a plant of some kind of bush, something like that. And then we're pruning it by renderer ID. So we're looking at the renderer IDs, and we accept a renderer ID. So I think it's very clear what the intention of this is. When a function name is clearly describes its intentions, it's a lot easier to write a unit test for. It's also a lot, and it's also, and more importantly, a lot easier to maintain. And so, so I have it twice, and so we renamed it. And basically, it's the reason we did this is we used to have deliver visualizations for render ID that just accepted a render ID, and then it interacted with the service's state. But I added another layer, and I can't remember what the name of this pattern was, but ChatGPT gave me like 4 pattern names that I might be done, and maybe a state separation pattern or something like that. But basically, the only goal was to sort of separate this line of code. No, not this line of code. This line of code into its own little world. That one line of code right there, so that we don't have to worry about the state when we're down here, because all this does is asks this guy to remove a specific renderer, give me a list without this renderer, and if that list is different, has a different count than the original list, then go ahead and write it and return a true. Otherwise, we're returning a false. So we can determine if it actually removed something or not. Right now, from a actual software development or from the application's perspective, it doesn't matter. Who cares whether it deleted it or not? If I ask you to delete it, just delete it if it's there. If not, but for unit tests, it's a lot easier if I actually get a result that I can test against. Um, Now down the road, it may or may not be very, very helpful to know whether it actually deleted it or not. Who knows? But I can tell you one thing: it's a lot easier to build that out now than it is when you're in the fog of war trying to figure out what's broken and what's not broken. So, anyways, so we want to write a unit test for this thing. So now we're in the function, and by default, the Angular CLI creates a spec file in the same directory. So we can come over here and we have a bunch. We already have 168 lines of unit tests, and it looks like about 10 or 12 unit tests for this, which probably makes this one of the most thoroughly unit tested function or files. They're all 100%, but this one actually has a lot of tests against it. Um, so I feel like one of my rules, or I know one of my rules had been like, all I want's 100%. I don't care what it takes. Well, I think I'm going to break that rule because I actually do want to check to see if this actually does delete a unit test and or a visualization. And the reason I want to do that is because it was broken. And this delete function here was not actually being executed. And we ended up rewriting all of this, and man, it looks so much better now after the rewrite than before. Like, that is just, I think, super clean, and I think it's very clean. Like, if you understand what the filter does, it's very clean what this is doing. If you don't understand what filter does, this is very confusing, but this is a great way to learn about it. And, literally copying and pasting this code and putting it into ChatGPT, you can get a nice little education on exactly what this is doing and why this set of code works here. But anyways, right now it's so crystal clear how all this stuff is supposed to work for me. I'm confident it will not be crystal clear in the near future. So, and one thing that I just kind of remember out of the side of my head, side of my brain, is that we have a function in here that returns like an empty instance, or it creates a visualization, and as a side effect to the creation, it actually adds it to the list and all that. So I don't know how I feel about that. It's just like, it feels like a very, very common human interaction is like, hey, let's add a player to the team. Okay, let's add them to the list of players on the team. That seems completely like easy and natural. So I don't know. So I'm going to create a it function, which is also known as a specification. It's many times called a spec. And yeah, it defines a single spec. And so then the first thing we give it is our expectation, which is just a string, which describes what I want this thing to do. So I expect this thing to remove a visualization based on an ID. And so we want to prove that, and we want a way to prove that. And I guess the very first thing we'd want to do is just check our reality, right? So you got to check yourself. So expect dot, no, we want, expect. And we know that the thing that we're working with is just called a service, and it's defined as a service at the top of this function. So this isn't like something you just remember. This is something we actually define. And then visualizations dot length, and then we want it to be 0. All right, we don't want to have any visualizations at this point. Let's just see if that's a reality. So we want it to be, basically what this is doing in real life, in full, like if you're really thinking through it, what it's doing in real life is it's just assuring that we actually do, that it's an array and that it doesn't have anything in it. So everything succeeded. So like, let's say we made this. Oh, and then before we do that, let's go back down here, and we do not expect this prune visualization any improvement here. So I'm just going to refresh and make sure that nothing happened here. Now, if I change this to 1, it'll fail, right? So, and it's always good to when you create tests to actually create the fail and test that it actually fails, because sometimes you just end up with, like, you write something that you think does something, but it actually doesn't do what you think it does. So it failed when it was and now we want to service, and this has a function, create visualization. Right? That's all we want to do, is create a visualization. And it did not. That did not work. So what is this one? It is create visual. Oh, okay, we need a renderer ID. And we need a viz component. So we could not do this. Okay, so let's go ahead. I think the easiest way to do this would be to find another place where we create our visualization. So over here we do this whole thing. Now this is always hard for me, because it's like, okay, all of this code does a visualization creation. So I could make this into a function and then reuse it, so I don't have to do that. And that is all my training, all my experience, all tells me that's what I should do. But in my personal experience with unit tests, I have found that you don't want to do that. And it's the most opposite thing in the world. And the reason that you don't want to do that is because if something breaks 100 of your unit tests, then you really want to go through every unit test and take a hard look at it. You don't want to make some change in one place that suddenly makes all your unit tests pass, because it's not, the point of unit tests isn't passing. The point of unit tests is a pointer that says, hey, this change you made has a significant chance of these are the places where impacts might have happened. And if you make a function that just sort of makes them all pass without having to do an analysis, you sort of defeated the whole purpose of unit tests. And I don't have a lot of confidence in what I just said. But I do. I'm pretty sure it's right. But like, I wouldn't like die on that hill or anything like that. But anyway, so now we want to create a unit test, and we basically just took all that stuff up there and just blindly assumed that that works, and that it will create a unit test, and it'll create a visualization, and that it'll get me a valid renderer ID. And now if something changes in the way elements work or some other thing that breaks this, I actually want to look at both of them. I don't want to only look at the one. I want to make sure, I don't want it to just make some small change that fixes everything here, because I'm pretty sure I'm doing something different in this test than I was doing in that test. So I don't want it to just fix. So anyways, let's just make sure we're back to passing. And we'll make sure that we're still failing down. That we still are uncovered down here. And now we expect the visualization's length to be 1 now. We created 1. Now we expect it to have 1. If we do not have 1, I definitely want to circle back around and figure out why we have some number other than 1 when we created 1. Right? So basically what I'm trying to do is just root myself into reality. I want myself to be in my conscious break. So something is not. Oh, so that's good, right? So it failed, but it was because I didn't change that. So basically I'm trying to I wish there was a better, more non-triggering word other than roofied, but I'm trying to unroofie myself. I'm trying to get through these things, trying to understand what's going on, and trying to be able to understand in such a way that I'll remember it outside of the coding flow state. All right, so now we do have 1. We created it, we added it, now we have 1. And we have a visual ID, visualization ID. So we should be able to delete it by the visualization ID, right? So let's see, const. Okay, so false result is equal to so basically we want to test that it doesn't break. Break if we pass in a visualization ID that doesn't. If we pass in a viz ID that does not exist. So I want to be able to actually pass in a number that doesn't exist and everything's fine. Nothing. I do not think I want that. I don't think I want this to break if we have a visual. If I say like 100 and the visualization ID doesn't exist, it should be fine. It should still be 1. It shouldn't delete 1. That's the other thing, is we want to make sure it doesn't delete 1 if it didn't exist. And it's just kind of one of those things where I just don't even know. So we know there's only 1. I don't even know. Like, I think we have, like, we fill in. Unit tests are important, I think. But I think, so we have our renderer ID up here. That is interesting, though. So we created this is the renderer ID. We don't want to, we're trying to delete it for the renderer ID, not the visualization ID. And we're not trying to do the delete, we're trying to do the prune. And again, see, I built that stuff and I didn't even think I don't think I was in any kind of flow state. And still, I completely forgot what it was doing. So, but I'm going to add a 1 to it. And I expect to get false. There's 2 things I think are important. First, I want the false result expect to be false. And then I expect the number of records to be 1. Right, so it should not have deleted anything. Now, do I expect? Yes. No, because we won't have called it these. So if this doesn't stay red, that's a problem. So okay, so this is one of it's still running. So So this is one of the few times I'm really happy to see that I didn't get coverage. So it worked. We didn't delete anything. Nothing broke. There was no compilation errors. Anything. So now we want a true result. This is really where things matter. This is what we've been working towards. I don't know if this helps at all, but and we actually want to try to delete the one by its renderer ID. So if this doesn't work, right? Like if for some reason this doesn't work, then we've gotten ourselves into a weird mind space. And it wouldn't shock me if it doesn't work. I'll be surprised. I will be mildly surprised if it doesn't work. I expect this to work, but it wouldn't blow my mind if it doesn't work. Let's see. Oh, it worked. Okay, so that's good. And then we expect it to be 0. That was the very first thing. And so I would say that 9 times out of 10, when I've worked at places and I've gotten things to whatever percentage that we're trying to get to, and the code and the unit tests are doing what they demanded, that management demanded or leadership demanded that we reached, and all that contractual obligations have been achieved, whatever. Like at the end, I don't remember anything. I just got it working. It's just like, when you take a test and you've gone to college and you've taken some sort of big exam, and then like literally a week later, or a day later, I don't remember anything about what was on that test because I'm already studying for the next test and I've already dumped all that information. And I think if if the company just needs you to get there to that percentage, and they're just trying to get a check and we're just trying to get to the next place, then maybe you just need to get that done. But if you're walking away from the unit tests and you don't really remember anything, you probably didn't. You probably did not benefit. You probably did not achieve the benefit that a unit test can achieve. Now, is the benefit of is the juice worth the squeeze? Juice worth the squeeze is like a common American phrase that basically sort of is about, like, let's say you have like fruit trees and you can go out and grab a piece of fruit off of it, and then you can put it in your juicer, and you spend like 25 minutes doing the whole thing just so you get like this much juice, and you just get a tiny little drink. I was like, it was not worth 40 minutes of work of cleaning the juicer and all that stuff for that. So is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. It just depends on the situation where you're working. But anyway, so we have improved our test coverage. We are at we got another branch, so we're at 62%, and everything. I think everything is 100% except for this file, all the way up and down. And so we definitely made a step forward. We did a massive amount of rework, refactoring to make this happen. Dealt with a lot of really intense, advanced concepts in JavaScript, particularly this guy, higher order functions. I couldn't really remember that word before working on this. So yeah, this is a higher order function. Both of this is a higher order function because it returns a function, and this is a higher order function. This whole thing is a higher order function because it uses a function that got returned. We definitely have grown, and it's just like I've worked I've gone to school with a lot of people, and a lot of times what will happen is you'll take a class and people will be like, I knew 99% of everything before I started that class. It was like, Well, then that class was so valuable for you because it finished off. Yeah, it found a piece of your knowledge that you don't know. Whereas I think it's more knowledgeable, it's more valuable to a person who gets 1% out of a class than someone who gets like 99%, because if you get like like let's say you took a class and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I learned so much, almost everything, like so much. I didn't know any of that before." You probably don't have a good working knowledge of it, and you're still working towards getting a working knowledge. You probably don't have enough to actually use that knowledge to your benefit. But if you already knew 100% or 99, if you already knew most of it, and then you learned some tiny important or tiny thing, especially if it was important, then you probably just really helped yourself a lot more than the other person. And that's kind of where I'm at. So tomorrow we're going to start digging into this get furthest right. I think we want to use another very, very advanced feature, um, where basically we want to accept this list of visualizations. So I'm glad I'm dealing with that. And then we want to, I guess maybe this is fine. At first I thought it wasn't good, but we want to go through, yeah, I guess this is okay. I was thinking we needed to turn this into like the kind of function where it calls itself over and over and over again. I don't know why I can't remember the name of that. What is a function that keeps calling itself until it solves the problem called recursive? Yeah, recursive. We want to create a, I was thinking we probably want, actually, and I still think now that I read that, this probably should be a recursive function. Um, it should probably like either look in and see if the left is there or not. Um, it should probably accept a right, and the very first time it accepts 0, and then it calculates the next right, and then it looks through. So I guess it can't really be. I guess we need to make a function. Now that I think about it, what we need to do is we need to make a function that returns the rightmost function, rightmost rightmost position of the farthest right sibling. That's what it needs to do. It needs to take that, and it just needs to determine which one is the farthest right, and then return whatever its right position was. Um, and so that's what I guess I'll work on tomorrow morning. Um, I think it's pretty good. I mean, I think that that's pretty good, but it is very like um, like you just it isn't very it doesn't say exactly what it does. I mean, the name of the function says exactly what it does, but this thing doesn't. So I kind of would rather this be uh, like I would rather have a, I guess. So this is doing is it's going through and it's determining what the right position would be if you took the current length of the current visualization and you added it to the left of the of where it is, and then it determines like, did I find one that was farther right? And that's sort of insinuated. It's not really, it doesn't really say exactly what it's doing. You just sort of, okay, so if it does go through this, you're going to end up with the right. I think I would rather this be more like readable, like in words, like more like a story or a sentence in a story, not like, oh, and as a side effect of doing this whole process, you'll end up with the rightmost one. So it's like I would almost rather get another array. I think what I want to do is get another array and sort it from the farthest left to the farthest right. I feel like that. Get Resort this array farthest left. The very first one in the array should be the farthest right one, the one that's to the furthest right. I want them sorted that way, descending by farthest right. And then just give me the top one. Get me the farthest right one out of that. So even like just get me the top one is like, okay, if I have them sorted from the farthest right to the least farthest right, and then you give me the top one, then you've gotten the farthest right one. I'd rather it read like get me the farthest right one, so that I don't have to sort of go through that mind process of figuring out what this insinuates. Um, so yeah, I guess we'll go down there. I guess we're going through like I'm spending a lot of time just trying to sort of refactor the way my brain sees things, when we could just be writing code to get stuff done. And I think that like if I was at a job and I was talking to like some VP and they were trying to figure out why the project's taking so long, and if I'm saying, well, I'm trying to refactor my brain so it works, I think it would be very fair for that VP to be like, dude, freaking just do your job. Quit screwing around with trying to whatever it is you're talking about right now. Just do your job. I totally get that. I think that's fair. But that's not this situation. This situation is I'm working on a project, and I got tons and tons of reasons why I'm working on the project, but one of those reasons isn't because someone's paying me to work on this project. So since no one's paying me to work on this project, it's totally fair for me just to use this project for my own personal benefit. And if it helps one person in the world to watch my video and they go, oh crap, I never looked at it that way, that's what I want to do too, or whatever, then it's a double win. But if all I do is get the benefit of my own personal growth, that's a win. And that's kind of the point. Anyways, I hope everybody has a wonderful Sunday. Happy coding. Bye.